Welcome everybody to the first unconference of this Codegarden, day one. My name is Jeffrey Schoemaker. I'm the owner of Perplex Digital, founder of the U-Marketing Suite, and I will be the host of this first unconference. We have 30 minutes to ask all questions that we received or are still receiving for the keynote speakers. We saw Kim doing the keynote, and we have him joining, as well as Jacob, Andy, and probably Anders. Hopefully they are in a few seconds, and we can start. There's a QA box on the top right where you can ask all your questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Jacob, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Jeffrey. Thank you very much. Good to see you, although it's online this time around.
Yeah, it's hard. And I also see that Emma also joined. Hello, Emma.
Hey,
how are
Jeffrey.
You doing?
I'm good. It's lovely and warm today.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. Kim, how was it doing the keynote? For the first time, I guess.
Yes, for the first time. Interesting. However, I found it relatively easy to decide on what content we should put in and what framework. As you know, we are very value-based and we live by our values, and to me it was appropriate to try to frame what we do in the context of the company values, so that was an easy choice, but it's interesting to do a keynote.
Yes, I can believe that. I can imagine that. Anders, also welcome.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Doing fine today?
Yes, definitely.
That is good. That is good. And of course, Andy, the famous, used to be Umbraco MVP, now Umbraco employee.
Yeah, that's the only downside of today. I'm no longer an Umbraco MVP, but
no, we can't be all the MVPs.
Yeah.
I've received some excellent questions on the Q&A, and we go through them. First of all, for Kim, in 2017, there was a goal to have 1 million Umbraco installs at the end of 2021, whereof 10% would be on Umbraco Cloud. How are we doing on that?
We are much closer to the 1 million installs than we are on having 10% of them on Umbraco Cloud. The number we have on our website stating 730,000 installs, that's a minimum number, as we only hold data for a number of reasons, going back to 7.5, and we all know that there's older versions of Umbraco installations running out there. So my bet is that we are close to the 1 million, but we aren't there on Umbraco Cloud. That's we knew when we set that target that it was extremely ambitious. The point is that we have managed to grow the company and generate the revenue necessary in order to continue and grow the project and the reach of Umbraco. Had we had double the amount in revenue, we could have done more. We could have done things faster, but that wasn't the case.
And is that worrying you, or do you say we have 6 months left? We're gonna go as fast as we can.
I have the sales director, so Anders, go fix the 10%. You have 6 months. No, it's not worrying. It has not been tied to our budgets. We have over the last years. Some would say conservative or bootstrap. I would rather say agile way, investing back into the company, painting with the broad brush. I mean, have we had a good quarter, then we would invest in the next quarter. Had we had an ordinary quarter, then we would wait. So we have been very agile, scaling up whenever we had the funds to do so, and we are, as I tried to say, or I can perhaps elaborate a bit on it. The way the company is, and it's the company who is primarily funded by the revenue generated by the company. We are truly a proper company with service and support, with sales. We have a proven go-to-market. We have communication marketing. We have a development team. We have a fish tank doing all the financing and oiling the machinery, making sure that we spend money as if it was our own. And then the latest addition is the community happiness team, and which deliberately has been built with a number of employees from all the other departments in the company. So community happiness is not a department; it's a way of working across the board. So I do think that Umbraco is in a very, very strong position and stronger than ever, and we are capable of taking things to the market, whether it's products, services, community activities, or whatever in a proper manner. So no, I'm far from worried. I'm in fact very pleased. I'm trying not to be complacent, and there's plenty of areas where we can do better, and we will constantly improve the way we are doing things.
That sounds really good, Kim, and really professional. And I think the responses yesterday at the Gold Partner Summit were really good, and also today. So I think you're doing a great job. Also giving short answers to the questions so we can get a lot of Q&A. Okay, for that,
Jeffrey, you know me, I don't like to be in the center.
no, I will move away the camera to anyone else. A few other questions. Are there any plans on redesigning the Umbraco documentation? Maybe that's something for Emma or for Jacob.
Jacob, would you like to go ahead?
I know there are some stuff in the works in terms of the design of the documentation platform. I'm not 100% sure how far those plans are yet, but I think it's clear that at some point some development of the platform needs to happen. There's a lot of work going on right now for documentation for Umbraco 9, and as part of that, there's been a lot of learnings on how do we evolve this documentation platform. So there's been feedback on that. And also, and we saw this with Umbraco 8 as well, but the fact that we now have several majors lined up in our documentation and the way that we have to maintain that and make sure that it's easy to figure out which part of the documentation do I need to go to. We have a decent setup for it now, but I think there's room for more improvements there. But I think it's too early, at least to my knowledge, to say when that will happen. But that stuff will happen.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, actually. I think that it's a really interesting time to start looking at documentation with V9 on the horizon. There's definitely a need for it. We love the way it works currently, and we have a fantastic team behind it. Oh, nice, Jeffrey. And so, just admiring your cup. We have a fantastic team behind it too, but it's something that we'll absolutely do in consultation with the community as well, because our perspective internally, we can see things from one side, but it's something that you will know best too. So this is definitely a project that we take on with the community in mind, and something that we have been talking about, but we're in no way ready to make any solid decisions on just yet.
I can add that we had our eyes set on a system from Microsoft. Forgot the name. I think we set the eye on it a couple of years ago, but awaits a certain functionality, enabling us to do the versioning in in the documentation. And to the best of my knowledge, it's not done yet. At some point, we need to revisit whether we should look at another system. But the ambition is definitely there.
That's good to hear. And I really love the focus on documentation, and it's so much better than when I started 10 years ago, or most of us started. So that's really lovely. And of course, the new kit on the block is version 9 coming up. We got a lot of questions. I think Andy could answer this. For those who haven't developed yet with .NET Core, how big is the learning curve to start with Umbraco 9, getting up to speed in .NET Core?
Yeah, well, it's a broad subject, certainly. But I think on a couple of ways, I would say it's perhaps easier than you think, in the sense that for going from .NET Framework to .NET Core, there are a lot of concepts that are the same. So MVC is very similar, controllers are very similar, views are very similar. There are differences, certainly, but even some of those differences are often things that are just promoted more in .NET Core. So dependency injection is an obvious one that has always been available, but it's very much front and center with .NET Core. And then when it comes to Umbraco, what the teams aim to do is to only change what is necessary, which is, there is change, of course, but again, the Umbraco database has stayed the same, the Umbraco APIs have stayed the same, the Umbraco back office, although this is another project which we might talk about because Philip mentioned too in his talk, but that hasn't changed for V9. So yes, things have changed, but no, as I say, only really what's necessary to change has changed. So I think most people will find the transition relatively straightforward. And if we're honest, .NET Core has been around for quite a few years now, so a lot of developers have gone through this already outside of the Umbraco ecosystem. So there's a lot of resources available to help with it.
Yeah, and probably again follow the documentation to get started, and let's pick it up from there. Yeah, cool. Some technical questions, probably for Jacob. Will we be able to use Entity Framework in V9, or will Umbraco maybe use Entity Framework in V9?
I love that you give me that question, Jeffrey, but I actually have no idea what the answer is for this one. So unless Andy can chime in on this is one.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer in the sense that Umbraco is still using NPOCO, which is the kind of the minimal object relational mapper that's used in Umbraco 8. So there's been no change on that in terms of using Entity Framework. Now, we all know how extensible Umbraco is, so there's no reason if you had your own custom data in your own database that you wanted to pull in using Entity Framework, you could certainly do that, but you could do that in V8 as well. Okay. So it's something that's on the roadmap to relook at the database. I think that's one of the things that's, people recognize we could look to improve, but obviously the focus of the last year or so has been on getting to .NET Core without making, what I said, unnecessary changes. Question is whether that's going to be database changes or whether it's using something like Entity Framework, still to be decided. But as of V9, no, it's still NPOCO, it's not Entity Framework.
Yeah. It's good to see. I have a Google Docs with the questions coming in. All questions directed to Jacob are redirected to Andy at this moment. That's working really good. Do you need any database rework for being able to do a block grid, Andy? Because we saw some block gridded editors. Do you need to do some database rework? Soren is asking.
Unless there's something specific about block editors I'm not aware of. I don't think so, no. I mean, again, the aim has been to make the content from a V8 installation carry straight over to a V9. So that means all the way the data is saved for all the different property editors hasn't changed. So I would expect that to just carry over.
Okay. Good. And will V9 run with Umbraco, with Examine on Linux? Will that work out eventually? There were some rumors.
I believe so, but again, I don't quote me on that unless I can pass this on to Jacob. But yeah, we'll have to come back and confirm on that. I believe so, but I don't want to say in case I'm wrong.
I don't think we have the final vote in related to Examine in that setup, but generally supporting Linux on V9 is there and something we are testing with, as well as being able to develop on Mac, which is something a lot of people have looked forward to. And what I can say is just second what Andy is saying in terms of changes made. So there has been a lot of effort made not to change the way that it's set up behind the scenes and the way that you work with the database and so on. But also there's a lot of technical stuff that has not been changed in this major that will come later as the front end that you talked about, Jeffrey. Yeah. And then, to the best of my knowledge, the only part of it there is some changes is on the member section where there has been some need to make some changes, if I'm not mistaken. But it's been very limited to try and make sure that we make this big transition into a new framework, but with a small a need for learning curves and migration work as possible, as it's obviously in our interest and in everybody else's to get up and running in the new standards from Microsoft.
Yeah, and if your client is sorry, Emma.
Oh, I was just going to cut in and say it kind of brings us back to this idea of how difficult is it going to be to make the jump from 8 to 9 to using NetCore. And because of the database structure being the same, it's a really, really nice jump to take. And one of the things, the latest beta did actually ship with examine support. So if you want to have a go, if you're out there, have a play, let us know what needs to change, let us know what's happening. In the last month, just in the run-up to Codegarden, the brilliant Carol Logan has been running learnathons along with me and lots of other HQ people. So people have had a chance to actually play with the beta. So we've had lots of feedback. And some of the feedback that we got was that it is a nice move to make. It's not incredibly discombobulating. The cheese has just moved slightly. So people are finding it quite intuitive to work with if they've already been building on framework. So
yeah, that's really good to hear. And that's also our experience at Perplex, that you have some startup time, but most of the concepts are the same. You only have to find where you should head. I see a lot of technical questions coming in, but also saw the slide on the market trend of Anders. So maybe a good question for Anders. You had one of the 6 points in the market trends is no/low code. Should we as a developer start worrying a bit that we should get into another job because we don't have to code anymore?
Oh, no, I don't think. I think that if I was to choose a new career, I would definitely choose into .NET Core because there's a lack of developers. I think the trend here is mostly about empowering the content editor. Time to market is more important than ever, and the more they can do themselves, creating landing pages and campaign sites and interact and transact with their customers, visitors to their websites, the more important. And a big chunk of this is done by you as agencies, as developers, that make it easy to be a content editor. So that's mostly what we mean with this trend.
Yeah, and of course the marketplace. Oh, sorry, Jacob.
No, I just wanted to add that one of the aims from Umbraco at all times has been to give a good developer experience with the platform and with the products, and that also goes for this. So when we mention this no-code, low-code approach, it's just as much to make it easier to work with and integrate Umbraco from a developer perspective. Make sure that we have the right APIs, the right frameworks in there, that we show the way on how things can be done, and maybe make related to what we talked about before, make it easy to transition to that without necessarily knowing all of the code base of Umbraco or some of the other concepts that you don't need. So you can get started on doing extensions and building on top of Umbraco with a good developer experience that requires less of you and gives the consumers of those extensions a better experience. I think an early example of something in that direction, at least, is the content app concept, where we try to bring more framework into how do you develop extensions that are closer to the content without knowing everything about all custom code Umbraco. So as a developer, I would look at it more as getting a better developer experience with more tooling that makes it easy to make integrations, so I can empower them even more. So spend more time on the value and less time on the learning curve, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and it totally, of course, fits also into the marketplace concept, where you get up to speed with some good marketing suites, for example, or any other packages. For Anders, what will make the Umbraco marketplace successful?
Well, first off, I think there's two angles to that. First off, we want to make it easier to integrate with Umbraco. So the developer experience that Jacob talked about, being faster at creating projects because there's already some integration made, that is definitely a factor that we are looking at. The other part is also, it's probably more on the conceptualization of it, because in many years, Umbraco has just been a CMS, and we are still just a CMS. And we concentrate on that part. And we have always supported the best of breed strategy, and we've said from HQ and you as agencies and developers, you can build anything with Umbraco. But for people that don't know Umbraco, it's hard to imagine anything. So with the best of breed, DXP, we actually show some of the building blocks. And here is different things that are already connected to Umbraco.
Yeah. Sounds really good. And do we have any timelines on the marketplace? I missed the last piece of your talk.
Well, the first thing is already taking place. We have already hired a technology partner manager to lead the discussions with the technology partners. Next up is that we are renaming the package section. So there's a clear red thread throughout Umbraco.com to our Umbraco, to the back office in Umbraco. And I know that Jakob is ramping up his team and building a integration team around this as well.
Okay. But when?
I'm not the moderator, but Andy might have something to add on this. True.
Thank you, Kim. Excellent. Andy.
Thank you, Kim and Jeffrey. Well, I think just quickly on the timing, I wouldn't see this as, to my understanding, as something that's just going to be finished and have a big launch and here is the marketplace. It's more in a number of areas there's ways to improve things. So the things that Anders has been talking about unifying what you see across Umbraco.com and our Umbraco in the back office, the things about building integrations and making them available. But it's not like we're going to quietly build 20 integrations and say, ta-da, here's the marketplace. It's more going to be just an evolution of what's currently there. Yeah. And I think it, just on another point, I think it works quite well with not only where we want to get to, but where Umbraco's come from as well, because as well as being a marketplace, which is clearly a more commercial term, and that's deliberate. You know, the point is to say it's perfectly okay to build marketing suites or e-commerce sites or whatever they might be in the Umbraco ecosystem. We want to support that. Obviously support that. But I think it also works the idea of a sort of marketplace of ideas as well, in the sense that packages have always been a way that influences the way core is built and the way people build websites. I mean, you'll know, Jeffrey, from your block list editor, which is now one of, well, several current ones. And if we go back in history, there's been quite a few before that, and they've all influenced each other. And so I think that's kind of a very important thing as well, that, you know, that those ideas can take the form of packages and people can kind of work out what they think works and what they think doesn't and constantly improve the platform as a whole.
Yeah. Excellent. And Jacob, how can we as a community help with the DXP effort or road you're taking?
There's going to be plenty of that. It's important for us that this DXP journey is also an empowerment for the community contributions and the package ecosystem that we know today. So it's meant to grow that initiative even further. So it will again go back to, do we have the right tools for integrating, checking up with how does these categories that we'll have in our DXP setup fit. But in general, I think a lot of developers will recognize this in terms of best of breed setup, that it's very common now that your solution, whatever it is, technically consists of many pieces, many different platforms that you put together. So one of the things I like to think about in this setup is can we get Umbraco to feel like home for those who don't know Umbraco already, but already have an ecosystem of various tools that they use? So when they come to Umbraco for their first experience, they feel at home already because the brands that they're used to using or the solutions that they need in e-commerce or whatever is there for them, and it's a smooth starting point and transition for them. And this is an area where I think the community can help a lot as well, because all of those in the community have all this experience. They know the ecosystem. They're working with this every day. So I would think that there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration in this area, and really make Umbraco feel like home to any content editor, but also to any developer that is picking it up.
Yeah. Cool. And if as a package developer, you want to test your package or integration with Umbraco Cloud, is there something like a free development only cloud site that you can spin up?
And there's definitely, to the extent we don't already have some of those concepts, this is something that will evolve as well. We also very focused on the whole continuous integration setup for packages in general. And I know there's been some great tools developed with help from the community and the community team around packages recently, but also related to Umbraco Cloud and back to the make it easy to integrate track. We want to make sure that package developers get that feedback. Is it working? The same goes for new releases for the CMS, which by now we do every 6 weeks, and we have a plan for majors every 6 months. That puts requirements on the way you can integrate with that from a CI point of view. So this is important, but it's also safe to say that there's an area that we have room for improvement on. So this is something that we'll start to pick up as this whole DXP and make it easier to integrate journey gets going.
Cool. A few questions also on the back office that Philip introduced. Philip is already starting to work really hard on it, so he couldn't join in here. So hopefully any of the other persons could join or could answer the questions. Will there be a possibility to use razor views for extending the back office? Andy.
Thank you. I don't know the answer, to be honest with you, but I suspect that decision hasn't been made yet. I think Philip was quite careful to not wed his colours to a particular mast with regards framework. And it sounds like that's heading towards the Blazor framework, which might be a good fit for Umbraco in the sense it's C# development, which is what a lot of people are used to. But on the other hand, it may well not be, and it may well not be the thing that makes the best sense to kind of really grow the community and grow the contributions. So long way of saying I don't know, but I suspect that decision is still to be made.
Yeah. And also,
we haven't made that decision yet, Jeffrey. I mean, it's divided into 3 phases, and we're starting off with the UI library. There was an IFC for the UI library, and for all 3 elements, it will have its separate IFC, request for comment, and there we will have this open discussion. I'm pretty sure if I promised today that we would support that, then Philip would be mad at me.
We used to have some guy promising stuff in the keynote or in day 1 and then making other people mad, but okay, another topic. I think you have only 2 minutes left. Kim, what is your dream for the coming year for Umbraco?
My dream is that we continue no, let me start somewhere else. I think Umbraco is a fantastic piece of software, a fantastic community, and a fantastic company. I do think that the way we are doing things, the open source nature, the fact that the company is open and transparent, the fact that the community is so friendly, I do hope that we, and this might sound a bit naive perhaps, but I do hope that the way we are doing things actually can influence the world to become a better place. I think over the years, the last few years, we've seen negative tendency towards nations, self-interest, me first, exclusion, and so on and so forth. And I would love that Umbraco, that way around, can influence the world to become just a slightly better place to be. So that's the big dream. How to pan that out, how to operationalize that, that's something different. But I'm sure if we make the world a better place, then the world will smile to us as a company, as a community, as people. So that's the dream.
I think that is a fantastic dream, and I'm speaking on behalf of the community and all attendees at this moment. We love that dream, and hopefully we can join you on that mission, and we can make it a fantastic year. With that said,
this morning Kim said to me, "I want 100,000 cloud sites."
But he changed his mind, and that is good. And that is good. Thank you for joining me at the first Unconference meeting session of the day. We have a short coffee break, and then we, after the rest of the program, have a great 2 days. And next year, we will see each other in real life again.
Can't wait, Jeffrey.
High five you, Rock.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Jeffrey. Bye.